It's a best of 5, and in the top right as the Red Terran, she is Deity. The bottom left as the pink Zerg, she is Telia. Having been on Team Light for a very long time, or Light Esports, or I forget what it was, but they were a fairly well-known, popular, respected team for StarCraft. I think they were clan in StarCraft 1 as well, but definitely StarCraft 2. Kind of diminished into a bit more of a clan, and then eventually officially announced that there was no longer a team at all, which is pretty sad, but it was one of those, at times, one of those just like very strong NA teams that we had back in like 2011 and whatnot. And I think Telia was on it the entire time, even when they changed their name, I believe is what happened at one point. And maybe even retired there. Anyways, point is, like, she's still on the clan, I guess. Deity on the, of course, well-known Psystorm gaming community team is pretty awesome to see. She is Masters 2 or 1. I know Kyla is Masters 1, but I don't actually know officially what Deity is. And hopefully it gives a good showing here. I think this is the first time that she's been in the finals against Telia specifically. Second time in finals, and the first time against Telia in the finals specifically. So last time these guys played was a long time ago, and it was an ultimate victory for Telia. It was so long ago that maybe Deity has stronger mechanics, stronger foundation. Perhaps she's really soaked in how Telia has played these past 10 weeks, basically, and has some ideas of what to do. Generally, the idea is just not to let Telia get the runarounds, right? Like, very much so a Zergling player, even as she continues to expand her styles and throw in roaches occasionally. It's usually around the idea of counters and run-bys and being generally very annoying. So one of the perhaps easier ways, like quote-unquote easier, is to go mech and just have Hellions and Hellbats guarding consistently, rallied to the front line somewhere. You know, that's kind of what Kyla was doing for a while and was getting quite a bit of success, actually. You know, Hellion run-bys, killing quite a few of Telia's drones. She wasn't able to back that up with the actual victories, unfortunately. You know, Telia still, even when she's up against the ropes, with a style that she's not familiar with, or against just a, you know, hey, like a very good player, is almost always able to come up on top, if not always in this tournament, right? Deity is going for something very greedy, so there's always that option when you know you're going up against someone who is just straight up better than you, like their MMR is like, whoa, way higher than yours, which I don't think is the case here, but just an example. Or if it's just someone that you know is very good in tournaments, which is more like this, what's happening here. Sometimes you gotta make that decision. You either go for the tier axe, you know, ultimately very cheesy. Maybe you just decide like, hey, this is a good opportunity to learn, so I'm gonna do what I usually do and just try and do it to the best of my ability. Or maybe you go on the opposite way, the cheese and the all-ninny and whatever, and you go into just kind of almost a cheese in the sense that it's kind of, you know, severely macro-oriented. So if they don't scout it, they don't do anything about it, they don't react at all to it, you ultimately get ahead just in a very different manner than if you had like T-Rex. And I'm not sure what Deity's style is. Again, I don't cast her that often, but considering the TVT that we saw her in just now, and this game right here, I'm gonna guess that she is more of a macro-oriented Terran player, working on the foundation, and just 3cc might just be her ball game. So the Overlord already sees that it's 3cc, which is kind of a dumb little fact of life, I guess. So Telia, if she's really paying attention here, not just kind of going off of pure habit, would say like, oh, there's supply depots. Okay, she's going 3rd CC. Okay, maybe I can cut this, or that. But you still want to try and get some type of additional scout in just to see what their follow-up is, right? So we're talking either mech or bio, kind of the biggest branch that you need to really check on. And then you also want to see like how fast are the barracks coming down? Do they swap over to a tank fast because they're so worried about you all-inning type deal? Do they have particularly fast reactors on their barracks? Are they swapping off their starport very fast? Like, slight differences, but one that could be the difference of like a very sharp 2 medevac drop timing or a later tank push type of timing, right? which can set you off a little bit here and there. So this Ling getting in, it almost seems like, oh, what's the big deal? Like, Shirley was 3rd CC. She still doesn't technically scout, but she knows. It's definitely more about, like, keeping it here, which shouldn't really be happening, but it's happening anyways. And seeing the timing of everything else. So, interesting choice to get the Starport with a tech lab, and then... I'm actually so interested in her base setup that I'm not even paying attention to, like, a Liberator. Getting a couple drones, and Hellions are also trying to get the 3rd base, but we're unsuccessful. Okay, pretty even there. So this Ling's still here. I don't think Deity noticed. I think she was controlling her Hellions at the time. It sees the ultimate decisions being made here. What goes on reactors and tech labs at what time. So the barracks coming down timing. She doesn't scout the starport, but, like, you know, you gotta figure it somewhere, right? Building a reactor. It wouldn't just not out on the starport, but this wall is already done. It's not being repaired though, and this is a very awkward supply depot that would mean only one SCV could repair this anyway, so I think it would eventually die. But there's, like, units here, so that was more of the question mark. There we go. Thank you, Sir G-Force, for the 11-month resub. Hi, ZG. Hi, Sir G-Force. Burrow is on the way for Telia, as well as melee upgrades, so not too surprising there. But again, she has been, you know, throwing in some roaches more often lately. But the Burrow being very quick is the coolest thing, right? We have a proxy, sorry, damn it, macro hatchery, as well as a 4th base, that appropriate timing, really all above board on the macro fronts for both players. Deity having some pretty damn good build order macro here, and Celia actually slipping on her macro, but still having all the timings you would usually see at this time. Maybe a slightly later Bailing Nest, right? But because she knows 3rd CC, because she had the exact timing of the starport and the barrack, she could actually have just consciously been like, I don't need it. I don't need it yet. I don't need centrifugal hooks for X amount of time. This type of stuff you actually start to not just learn to impress your friends and cast this game, but actually to get better at the game. So Burrow's going to be really annoying if these run-bys continue happening. I mean, you consider that Telia's run-bys already win her a lot of games against Terran, and then add on this Burrow shenanigan shit. Like, oof. I don't envy Deity right here at all. I think I could get Celia, like, maybe a run for her money, but I think I would ultimately get so tilted by the run-bys killing me that I would also get 3-0'd, so. Which is, it's happening here. The best person who is defended against Celia's style of play has been Kyla with her mech play. I don't know if Deity is one to do that at all, but it might be something to consider for an entire best of 5. I was talking about macro because I also wanted to highlight another thing. Oh, no, not the mules! No! Good focus right there from Telia. I wanted to highlight that Telia also has some pretty substantial creep set already. It's not like up to her opponent's base yet. Oh, cat hair in my mouse. Cat hair in my mouse. But it is a significant ways forward on every single pathway on this map. So, you know, most importantly, you cover the 3rd base and then you get to run to the 4th. Deity hitting kind of like an odd triple drop timing here. Off a 3cc, I think it's pretty typical to see like 730 or 8, I want to say, but with like 3 medevacs, it actually is so shocking, so substantial that even though it's on creep, and Telia did have somewhat of an army, it still grabs the 4th base and is able to evacuate. So a really nice grab there. Even grabbed a decent amount of creep spread, but ultimately missed this one active creep tumor, which is always a bit, feels bad, man. 2 factories already finished with drilling claws on the way. We're gonna have to pay special attention to the production here, because that's generally the difference of, say, like a Masters 1 and a Grandmaster, in my opinion, is their factory production. And then maybe they start production if they're rather weak on that. But, you know, at this point, when you get to Masters 2, 1, whatever, you kind of have the whole spamming A thing pretty down pat, right? Like, that's good skill to have. But you start to really mess up with the tank production, or in this case, in the new meta, right, the Widowmine production. So, and then, I mean, it's really just hard to play Terran consistently pushing and whatnot. So you have less opportunities to trade effectively sometimes. But anyways, there's gonna have to be a decent amount of micro coming out from Telia against these Widow Mines as the number continues to grow. It's gonna get scary by the time they really come out. Alrighty then, I didn't even notice that. By the time the push really happens with the Widow Mines with Drilling Claws, Telia should have a probably maxed out army, and she just got a decent number of SCVs there. Up to a total of 19 SCVs killed in this game. Not too shabby. Tanks, I like the defensive tank. I really do. Actually, I think it's a great choice, but still getting some kills there, and Deity almost made the mistake of focusing, you know, too many places, almost pushed on to creep, and that would have been absolutely terrible. In fact, she's still doing something really, really bad here. Yeah, she's gonna get slightly punished for that. Ooh, Widowmine, why? Why you do this to us? Oh my god, alrighty then. Yeah, even if 2-2 was really as fast as possible, that still probably wouldn't have looked too pretty. So this is also something that I find kind of differs between Masters 2-ish and GM MMR and NA anyways, is like Widowmine production, right? Which we're seeing kind of stalled out here. And then how the engagements are taken. Either you're constantly pushing with the Widowmine meta with like tinier groups of units where you can make 1 or 2 mistakes or you go too deep on a creep. If you watch Innovation play, right? Like you sometimes makes that mistake. So you lose 1 group, but you have 2 other groups plus a drop going off somewhere, right? Either you're doing that, or you're doing a very strong, like, slow push where you're always concaved. You got a couple Marauders, hopefully at this point too, to kind of run forward. Your Widowmines are never clumped up, and there's enough of them to really threaten. I mean, it's hard, but we didn't really have either one of those things happen. We had the big kind of push, but unfortunately it was just kind of a big ball of Marines throwing themselves forward, which Julia, of course, is gonna pounce on. Even though she didn't really know how many Widowmines were even there. But she just was like, I think I can do this, and she was right. So the run by is going to kill a lot of SCVs. I don't know how they got around there. That is an attempt to stop that from happening. This wall right here, and it did not actually do its job. There was a drop or push here that was taken out because we also had those corruptors, which I didn't actually touch on. We saw the spire being made, and I thought, okay, cool, mutas, but it was corruptors. This was a style being used by, I mean, what was it? Well, I think Dark was using it with roaches and banelings. But the point is, corruptors as your anti-air aren't entirely new or entirely weird, but in my opinion, they were kind of just like a phase. It was just a phase, Mom. And I don't actually like them as much as mutas or even hydras still. But anyways, these lings are upgraded 2-2, almost a 3-3. Do they have adrenal glands already? They in fact do. I was like, that's going down awfully quick not to. So they just tear, what, that was 6 supply depots, 7, 8 supply depots going down in almost the blink of an eye, which will start to help supply block Deity. She is just, I mean, she's trying to keep the Zerg horde back, both the army and the creep spread, but it's just being, it's not rapid enough. It's not consistent enough. There we go. You know, like this is all great if this was happening every 30 seconds, and instead she's having to deal with the run bys and the stuff being burrowed, and occasionally just not having the her mind on the drop, right? Like this is a suffocating Zerg right here. It feels suffocating, it feels pointless. And even if you take a breath and go, okay, whatever, I'll just get to max and then I'll see what you can do with that. Zerg playing really well, then they'd probably still have, you know, what we're seeing right now, which is Broodlords on the way. But Deity's not even close to max. This game was over regardless of the Broodlords, and that is going to be game. GG. Telia really highlighting her style against Terrans, I think. You know, it's one thing to see it against Zerg, who occasionally just get Banelings and kind of, you know, they're like, oh, I got lucky with the Baneling against Telia's run by is over with. Terrans? Yeah, we can try and burrow Widowmines around, but even with them being cloaked with Drilling Claws now, it's still difficult. So that was game number 1. We still have at least 2 more games to go through, 2 more different styles, perhaps, for Deity to play. Next up's going to be Kairos Junction. Finally a new map. Constantly, like, triple checking to make sure it's the right game in the replays. Alright. In the bottom rights, as the Red Terran, she is Deity. Time for a BC rush. I'll see how much Athena she watches. In the top left, as the pink Zerg, she is Telia. And I know it's not only Nathanis doing the BC rushes anymore. I know we've seen, like, Soul do it. Attempt to do it legitimately, but I ultimately think that they are just lulz. It's a lull build. I don't understand the meta shift from tanks back to mines. I get the upgrade cloaks them again, but to be honest, it's not enough in my opinion. So when it was initially announced, I was hesitant to believe that it would actually change the meta, but with both the Hydras being somewhat nerfed, so there was maybe more of an inclination for Zergs to also go back into mutas, which you would, if you were up against someone who's going mutas in the previous meta, you would also still probably want to get mines over tanks, so that was more of an option of either one. But then above that, the cloak after drilling claws after the shot was actually more substantial. It might be a phase. It might be just a phase because Zerg players had forgotten or had been out of practice of dealing with the old Widow Mines, right? Where they always had to have an Overseer and they always had to have Overlord speed. Maybe it'll go back to tanks as people just always are able to take out the Widow Mines no problem. But I think with how the matchup was already shifting anyways, and just the wants and need of Terran players wanting and being repetitive, needing a new way to deal with Zerg, it just kind of tied up all together nicely. The Hydra nerf, you know, even though it was kind of low, still had some Zerg players look to mutas, which you would want Widow Mines against. The cloak after shooting with drilling claws, and then you know, so many Terran games versus Zerg in the previous meta were just kind of going to, okay, maybe I'll try a 2-2 push, but if it doesn't work, then I guess I'll sit back and just defend. It was getting kind of boring. It was getting kind of frustrating as a Terran player to have one good push and then sit back and be like, well, I guess I'm screwed. So now you have their attempts to go hyper Super Saiyan Terran again and actually consistently engage, which is not something you can do with tanks, but you can do with Widow Mines. I think it all came together really for this patch, and everyone wants to experiment with new patch regardless of how good or bad a nerf or buff really was. I think, you know, ultimately Dark Templar Blink has not really been something that's useful, but when it was released, you better believe every single Protoss was fucking using it, alright? And it was really annoying. So maybe the Widow Mine thing is going to be a phase, but it seems to be working out, and it certainly is giving us better Terran versus Zerg games than the previous ones, because they really, a lot of them were what I was describing in my own games, but hey, I'm just a pleb, but also in the pro games, it was like, well, that one push didn't work, I guess you're just done. Well, hey, maybe the Widow Mines, you get a couple of nice little hits, suddenly you're back in the game. Anyways, I think I just had the worst thing ever happen to me, guys. I think I inhaled a hair. Oh, it's the worst feeling ever. Ugh. Yeah. Ugh. Okay, well. Pretty standard born openers here. 3rd CC and 3rd hatchery. Reaper does go down, but it's got everything you need to scout. Drones being at the 3rd is kind of the last scout you really need for a certain amount of time. If there's drones at the 3rd, usually they're not doing some type of, you know, all-in. But here's something interesting. We have a fusion core. That is interesting. So maybe it really is going to be the battlecruiser rush. We have a tech lab going on the starport. So while this could have been Banshees, if there's a 2nd starport, with only one, we're going to guess Banshee or battlecruiser. And that is, as I said, it's a bit of an Athanis meme, but some other Terran players have attempted actually using it. And if you're not pros, there's always a chance that X, Y, Z, D, C, whatever build is going to actually work. So you can't really ever judge it too harshly until you get to the extreme pro level. And even then, Zerg players, Zerg is always the race that's going to have the most difficulty dealing with something new, something really stupid and silly. Initially, anyways, and they figure it out and everyone agrees this is the best way to do it. So whether it was the 2-port Banshee that once existed, whether it was the Liberator Range that once existed, now it's the battle cruisers. Sure, a lot of Zerg players are gonna take a lot of damage from it, but then they're gonna collectively figure out how to deal with it, how to scout it, and they're going to no longer take any damage from it, and then they're going to absolutely raffle stomp anyone who tries to do it. That is my prediction, because I think it's already kind of happening. So this is bad news for Celia, who I know last game seemed like she scouted a lot, but usually doesn't scout that much. I think I've remarked on this before. You know, she does the good old overlord at the front, which actually she's missing here. So she can basically tell if it's going to be a 2-base or 3-base, and she can kind of tell if it's she definitely can tell if it's 2-1-1. She can tell if it's a 3rd CC fast. should have some trouble against things like a Hellbat push or a Battlecruiser rush or 2 starport. And this is something that people have tried to use against her in the past, but again, just showing her tenacity as well as just her very solid mechanics. She started playing a lot more StarCraft again. She no longer just stays behind in the game, which is kind of the goal here, is that you do the damage with the Battlecruiser, you kind of have your lulls, and then you actually play a very serious follow-up game, generally with Bio. I want to say from some of our top pros, but, you know, occasionally from Mech as well. But the point is it gets a little more normal after the Battlecruiser harassment. But you need to have the follow-up, and if you don't, well, you can still be screwed. This did come with an armory, by the way. That's why I brought it up. So we have the Hellbats attacking the third hatchery. Not many drones have gone down so far, though. These are just from the Battlecruiser, I believe. Oh, no, hold on here. Am I reading this wrong? Wait a minute. Oh, those are... I was reading it wrong. I assumed that it was drones going down. It was SCDs going down to a run-by. So this is still not... It's not even... Okay, well, there we go. Finally, it's happening, right? There we go. I'm reading it right now. Okay. So, I mean, it's even up a little bit, but Tila getting Lings in there helps, considering how much mining time she lost, and that she did, in fact, lose her 3rd hatchery. So that's really nice for Deity. That's a strong start, but can she continue? Can she follow it up? Can she defend against these really annoying run-bys and just style of play from Telia? And the answer, it just might not... It just might be no. It might be, oh great, I took some damage, but you still have what is ultimately a clumsy build, even if you're very good at executing it. And I still have everything I usually have, right? This game is not over literally right now, so I still have a fair economy. I still have the option to do run-bys, and I still have creep spread on my side as well, which is something that you're not really ever going to focus on when you're trying to kill drones and hatcheries, right? So that's kind of one way that Zerg players can try and make a return is, you know, depend on creep spread to kind of get them the knowledge they need when an attack is coming, if it's coming, whatever. Really nice teleport here to kill this hatchery. It's got really, really low. Absolutely worth target firing. There we go. So that is 2 hatcheries down for Celia. She's rebuilding her 3rd, and it's almost done. She still managed to save most of her drones through this entire ordeal. And now she's probably figured out that it is, in fact, a mech follow-up. Sure, a Hellbat attack plus Battlecruisers kind of looks like that's mech, but you also want to keep checking on that Hellion count. And it's been nothing but Hellions. And now she's actually literally going to get to the natural, maybe even get to the main base. So that's why it's raised. There's only a Battlecruiser to help take these out. And these are actually upgraded Lings. One is already done, as opposed to the Battlecruisers who, well, they had the upgrade, right? You have Cyclones on the way, which is a very interesting option. Maybe anticipation... Well, I mean, she could just be going Hellbat Cyclones, so I'll just leave it at that. I would have preferred a regular follow-up, but I also would have preferred her not letting Lings into the supply depots, right? So that's pointless preference to point out. Blue Flame on the way as well. I mean, going into what is Cyclone Hellbat mech, I wonder if really new Cyclones work. Well, they're kind of old Cyclones. Total bias here, guys. Like, I actually don't think Cyclones are as... I don't think they were as useful and good as people were saying in the beta, and I don't think... sorry, this patches beta, the test map, but I don't think they're good now. I've seen pros try and utilize them, and they still don't really work out. So I don't know, guys. I just... I would prefer regular old mech, but I think it's kind of pointless to even talk about the decision-making of our Terran player, because with all the runarounds been happening, and Telia just simply playing the migrating Zerg here, going base to base to base to base, she's really not in a terrible position, regardless of what she goes up against. But the idea with Hellbat Cyclone, so I'll definitely, you know, give it credit for this, is that it is more aggressive. You don't wait till 150 with tanks to move out and give Telia plenty of time to redrone or whatever she's doing, right? You actually get somewhat of a consistent push that is somewhat quickly reinforced, although obviously a lot less quickly than it was prior when you could react route Cyclones as well. So I'll give credit to that idea, but it is a bit less of a potent idea with the tech lab necessary. And also, I just never really gave it much credit to begin with. I'd only occasionally see, like, Gumiho basically win with it, so. Anyways, you got 3 Battlecruisers accompanying this, which is always going to change things up. They're decent now, and they always had a very bothersome aspect that if you ever got to a certain number, it felt like you could not kill them. If they had a certain number of battlecruisers and a certain number of upgrades, right? So let's say 6 battlecruisers with 2 armor, and it just felt like you could never kill them. It felt really bad. We're also going up against queens that no longer have an instant transfuse, or rather a transfuse over time, which, as you can see, those Hydras are trying to be transfused, and then they still end up dying. Doesn't ultimately matter, but I thought I'd point it out, as the battlecruisers do, in fact, go down. Both players starting to get into the swing of their production, but did have mistakes on macro, either, both sides. See that banking quite a bit, but continuing to creep spread, taking out the armies as she sees them, going up to Hive right now, and being way ahead in those upgrades at 2-2. She actually included Banelings, which is exactly what she's doing. I love it. She can totally destroy this army with just pure lane Baneling. Doesn't even really need the Hydras, but she has quite a bit of them because of the battlecruisers, so that also will help. Now, what Deity would ever have to do against this, and her supply really isn't that bad. I know I'm kind of painting a grim picture for her, but maybe I'm being a little too harsh. Is that she would have to control the Hellions as Hellions, and then at the last second, if possible, turn them into Hellbats. But it's really hard to do, though. And as you can see, this army just is actually getting absolutely shredded. So the army supply was not that inferior for our Terran player, but it sure looked inferior when the engagement finally happened. When the AD is on a 4cc, I mean, that's very bold to put it on location against Telia, but Telia was, for a while there, dealing with her macro, I think, more than worrying about run buys, but now they're back in full swing as everything is good to go. I mean, she's going to be on 5 bases with 74 drones, proxy. Damn it, I keep saying proxy. I'm back into that old bad habit. Macro hatchery in the main, so she's going to start using her minerals and gas. She's just gonna go for Vipers, which was a strong option against this style back when it was used. There was that period of time where I feel so dumb having to explain the new versus old versus new Cyclone. The Cyclones that we see today were very similar to the first Cyclones of Legacy of the Void, so in a way they're old Cyclones, even if they weren't the previous Cyclones. Anyways, there's a time where that was actually very strong, and Zergs were really struggling to figure it out. Protoss, too. And then it wasn't that they were changed that made everyone stop complaining, as far as I remember it. It was just that Circuit players and Protoss players got better against it. And then they also got changed. So anyways, Vipers were a choice that were, was started to be added in. Obviously, this army's better at dodging blinding clouds than, say, tanks would be. That's just a very obvious fact. It still doesn't change the fact that the army temporarily stops shooting while still in range of Hydras and while still capable of being surrounded by Baneling. That, and with the Cyclones not being instantly replaced so much as they were in the previous patch, Abducts might work a little bit better as well. And abducting battlecruisers, because we are going back into battlecruisers, which makes sense. It does. It just is, I think Deity would have wanted a stronger mid-game before she went back into them. So this isn't the best transition at this time, I think. So there are those Abducts. There are quite a few Vipers. There's also a lot of Queens. Holy my golly, jeez. And the Cyclones will always have a successful trade when they retreat. That's the one great thing about the Cyclones, right? But then they get surrounded by Lings and they're like, oh, never mind. Well, this Liberator is just going to town, isn't it? Jesus. Finally, the army comes by. That was a decent number right there, but it's still, that is, oh god, oh my goodness. I didn't even realize Telia had killed that many workers. Deity has made over 100 workers in this game. And is at a solid 69. But still, lordy jeez. This game's certainly not over, but it just feels like Telia is winning every single time Deity really tries to actually do something. But Telia is also having trouble really finalizing this game, because every time she tries to engage and they just retreat, she has to, well, she also has to retreat. She's gonna lose Hydras and Queens, which doesn't. But she's spreading the creep straight forward every time she bullies Deity back. She's getting to some better units, potentially. We do have Broodlords on the way, and with Vipers being able to adopt the battlecruisers, unless the battlecruisers are a much higher number or also had Vikings on their side, I think Telia will ultimately win the air war, should she choose to go for that. Which I think she is. I mean, she's not replacing her supply right now. and is, you know, finalizing that greater spire. I think if you're going to go for that type of play, though, a second spire would be in order. Just like to really the cherry on top, you know, but what ifs. Yeah, some people pointing out teleports. There's some really smart teleports early on in the game with the harassment. Now it's all about saving your battle cruisers. Unfortunately, with that noted, it's still very expensive to lose even 4. Over a 15-16 minute game, that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you consider how expensive battle cruisers are, it's, you know, technically, you know, with proper decision making, she should have saved every single one. Can you make it with a Viper to cancel the jump? Of that, I am pretty damn sure you cannot. That would be... Why would you ever use battle cruisers against a Zerg late game army if that was possible? Like, that's supposed to be teleporting, but yeah, that's why I said decision making, not micro, because I know she's going to try and teleport the battle cruisers away, but it's a problem that they've already teleported, and it teleports kind of a long spell. Now, this engagement does ultimately go in favor of our Terran player, but at pretty great cost. She had a run by at her 3rd CC that just killed everything. Luckily, she still had a solid 58 SCV. She's also losing her other command center, which is an orbital anyways, and was doomed to be run by with Ling, so I didn't expect much from that. And as she pushes forward to try and continue with the momentum, she is just crushed by Ling Baneling on creep. Battle cruisers without support, forced to teleport out, even though they're at decent upgrades currently. They still could not quite handle what was left. Corruptor's fine where they teleported. I said that weird. There was the wrong emphasis. But they were being repaired by SCVs, so that was probably a proper reaction not to engage that. I wonder what an impact investors will have in pro games the next year versus battlecruisers and mech compositions, since Fungal disables teleport for its duration. Does it? Okay. So, just checking here. At one point, Fungal stopped Blink, and didn't they change that? I thought they changed it before this patch, or maybe I'm just crazy. Sorry, by Blink I meant Stalker Blink, because that's where we would see it occasionally. And they stopped pickups, didn't they, as well? Oh, now I'm getting, like, my wires all crossed, man. Okay, no, yeah, they changed it back so that it does stop it. Okay, gotcha. Gucci, thanks, Badrocks. Cool. Cool. Alright, well. Whatever timeline that worked out in, at this point, it does disable Blink and teleport and whatnot. Okay, cool. Might be big, might not be, because I honestly don't think battlecruisers will make it their way into the true pro game meta. I am a hater. I'm not hating on anyone who likes battlecruisers, but I am a hater of the battlecruiser idea. Too bad you couldn't build better cruisers. Yeah. It's like, I don't think having 4 more battle cruisers when I pointed it out would have helped her, but I think if she had stopped being aggressive, like, stopped attacking at all with the Hellion Cyclone composition on the ground and just built up a battle cruiser, Viking, Raven, maybe even army, / went into tanks instead of cyclones, I actually think that she could have played a very long game and really given Telia a scare. Because I don't think Telia was scared in that game, even though it lasted a long time, although I could definitely be wrong. She does usually stream her matches. She just isn't attached to TL. So if you ever want to watch her play, then you can, just as long as you find where she actually streams. I'm going to move the camera so it's off Blazer's butt. No, why would you move position as soon as I move the position, you damn cat? You such a friend. Don't you dare leave that. Don't you dare! You bastard. He was a real cat right there, man. You were being a real cat. Anyways. Alright, so it's game number 3 in the bottom left. As the red Terran, it is Deity. In the top right, as the pink Zerg, she is Tilia. What's the deal, Blazer? You weren't cool with me using you for making money? I was using your cute little butt. So I'm not sure what's going through Deity's mind right now, right? I had pointed out in the very first game the options you have when playing anyone, of course, but also what specifically goes through your mind when you play someone that you think you're going to lose to. A position I'm going to find myself in shortly for the Casters tournament, right? But that, more so than just I go on ladder and someone's around my same skill level and I just kind of do what I want to do, playing at someone I think I'm going to lose to, and then it goes through my mind, like, maybe I cheese them. Maybe I try and get that quick victory. No, that won't work. Okay, well, maybe I look at it as a learning experience. I'll lose, but, you know, I'm doing my thing, and I get to play against someone who has stronger timings. Okay, then. Or lastly, you do, you know, significantly different build, more macro-oriented, and try and get the head right there, which is... I mean, Deity has gone to both ends of the spectrum, right? She did the, well... She never did T-Rex, I guess, but she did the Hellbat Battlecruiser thing, which is weird and kind of cheesy, right? Even if it was with a 3rd CC. And then she also did the more normal, probably what she usually does, 3rd CC bio. So now as it's a 3rd game, potentially final game, as she is down 2-0. What is going through her head? It looks like with the 3rd CC on the way, it is just kind of back to basics. Maybe she throws in a Hellbat push just to mix things up, but nothing... significantly different so far, and it is going to be scouted as soon as possible. When a Zerg player scouts it like this, it actually gets a little scary, I think, because this is when a Zerg player could maybe change their mind and not drone that 3rd base and add on whatever, Bailey Nest or Roach, whatever they want to do, right? If it's over here, then they kind of have to give it the benefit of the doubt for a little while longer and wonder, well, maybe they're 2-1-1-ing, or maybe the supply depot's over here and I have to move it, right? But you scout it as soon as possible, literally. It's, it can be a little scary. But Celia is not generally an all-any cheesy player, although she does mix it up. Probably just for the sake of mixing it up. So I'd be like a little like, oh, ooh. This is where I'd probably get like a fast tank past the point of 6 Hellions. You know, usually you see the factory moved off, and then the barracks at the tech lab, and then, the barracks is added on to the reactor, while the factory makes another reactor for another barracks. It's used as a bit of a, you know, reactor whore, like, eh. But if you want to play it a little bit safer while also still being kind of greedy, then you could actually just swap it off to a tech lab and immediately build 1 tank. That's what I would do, but I'm also a wimp. I don't take very many chances in this game. Now, we do have just right in a stim with a single Liberator for some harassment. Maybe add on a Viking as well to get rid of those Overlords, pesky things that they are. And the Starport will otherwise not be doing very much, although it could add on its own reactor to help out with the additional barracks. She actually adds on a tech lab, probably to swap off with the factory, so it's not like a very safe tank follow-up, but I think in... not the last game. Last game was too weird of a build, but in the first game, she did add on 1 tank as a safety precaution, but more of like a mid-game safety thing, and that's, might just be her plan here again, too. Double engineering blade, so on and so forth. Telia, again, with kind of fast upgrades. She has always had the upgrade advantage in every single game. Gonna take a bit of damage from this Liberator. Some eggs will go down, perhaps. Oh, actually, no. They're on sieges. And then re-sieges in the same place? Oh, to kill the queen, which Chilia had stopped paying attention to, so credit to her. And the reason she stopped paying attention to it is because the Hellions were being dealt with. Unfortunately, this, I think, in total, sums up to be something that Telia is okay with. She did lose a queen, but she took out all of the map presence and also 3rd base defense of her opponent. Two Hellions not really be something that you depend on defending as you expand after all. Thank you, Bro Manatee, for the 4-month resub. He's got a little snowflake next to him, too. Pretty snowflake. So yeah, this is, I was talking about being scared, and I would, again, be very scared here, especially against Telia, who I know is gonna, or I guess has a pack of Lings patrolling around looking for run-bys. I'd be like, I'm gonna lose this third if I try and take it, and I'm gonna lose all my army if I try to take it, and then I'm gonna die. I would have waited till I had more Marines. Again, I'm a bit of a pansy. But in this case, Telia is not ready to go with a bunch of Lings. She is really droning up, so I think we have seen her in other games add on 20 Lings instead of 20 drones. This game, she goes directly up to 75, 76, no, 80 drones in total, as I do some quick math here. 4 bases, macro hatchery, not quite on the way, but that definitely should be on the way. She is going Lane, Baneling, Muta. Well, maybe Muta. She went Clippers last time. Spire is halfway done. Difficult hooks. 2-2 should be started as well. This almost always seems to be around the time that Telia starts to bank a little bit, but then she very quickly starts to add everything that she needs. So deals with the leftover Hellions, which don't even get to scout the timing of a fourth base rather. This 2 medevac drops actually rather well executed, I think timing-wise. This ended up going pretty nicely for her. She did end up going for 2 safety tanks. And is adding on the factory for Wood Mines. Yeah, that's a reactor. So it's going to be in a Wood Mines. So very much so like the first game. We'll see if maybe she can get some more damage done. Remember, she was able to snipe a hatchery of her opponent in that very first game with a triple drop a bit later. Now with a very well-timed double drop, it's hitting just before Banelings are ready. Telia probably a little shocked at how well-timed this was. Should be focusing on those Banelings. Oh, no. A little bit late to that. Some accidental focus fire on an unimportant gas geyser means that this is done and over with, despite only really being going up against Queens. So just, it was so close to being perfect, and now Deity is not even paying attention. She's going for a very fast 4CC, so playing more to the defensive side, so she doesn't have to deal with those run-bys again and have her momentum broken. She would rather get a little more to max, maybe even, with this quick of a 4CC, with only using the medevac drops to really gain any map control. So that does mean you are going to lose medevacs, as you now see Deity now confirms that she's going up against Mutas. She's going to have to acknowledge she's going to lose medevacs. Because even though you go for a 4CC, even though you're going for maybe a bit more defensive style, remains to be seen how she's going to play it out, you still can't let the Zerg players do whatever they want. You want to always poke and prod, clean up pre-spread while also dropping and keeping tabs on them. Otherwise, you will just ultimately fall behind, even though you're also going for quite the macro style of play. These SEVs, actually way too many went down for how few Mutas there were. Unfortunately, they're already starting to be run around. So while Deity was probably thinking a lot about defending and not dealing with Ling run-bys, which are all ground-based, right? Like if I have my army here, they're not getting through. Mutas are not as simple. Mutas will run around until you build missile turrets around your base. And even then, you have to go up to 20 Mutas because you were unsuccessful in trading out with them. They will run past, not run past, they will destroy the missile turrets and continue to be a bother. The good news is, as a Terran player, is you can just add on a Thor at the very least and kind of try and control that. Try and run around the medevac, take some pot shots at the Mutas, but this is another reason Mutas have come back. I mentioned the Hydra nerf, which is it was a very slight nerf, but still it's important. But also because Thors are now technically better against Mutas, they are worse against Lings. Or sorry, I didn't mean that. But things are going on. Yeah, that army just actually just died. Sorry, Thors are worse against Mutas and against Lings. Like they're worse against everything. So they're better against Broodlords is what their buff was. Which I don't think was a fair trade, but whatever. So anyway, this game's probably over. Deity went too far off of, well actually it's, I wanted to say like too far on a creep, and then I realized she wasn't even on creep, so I said off, and it's just, it's one of those things where you think you're safe because you're not on creep, so you chase after an army, you chase after the Mutas. And the Zerg player, in a bit of a gamble, so it always is a very frustrating thing to deal with, it's a gamble, they engage off of creep. The Deity didn't expect it, she didn't have her army positioned well, and it just all went to hell very, very quickly. Deity loses a good chunk of her army and is now a bit desperately moving on to this creep with a good number of Widowmines, sure, but missing, let's say, also, medevacs. big time, and also just is still on creep ultimately, as the scan didn't reveal every single creep tumor. So once again, a good engagement from our Zerg player, who is still on 83 drones now. And while she's having trouble remaxing, she's adding on macro hatchery finally right now. She definitely, I want to say she forgot that. Just straight up forgot that. But the good news is that you could also just, you could put every single larva egg into mutas and you could make your bank look a lot cleaner. Or I go for ultras, which are not larva intensive at all. Also adding on all the upgrades, including +2 flyer attack. No missile turret was built here, or was killed, I forget which one. And third CC might even die. No, I see he's gonna repair that. But it's still distracting Deity, who really wanted to get up to more of a, oh, nice. That was nice. You need 4 Widow Mines to kill a huge clump of mutas, though. So missing 2. If she wanted to get up to more of like a 150 and above, like probably more to 180, honestly, type of army before she really pushed, like I was talking about, but never got the chance. So GG. Got the runarounds, but not with Lings that time. With mutas.